We need to let social media run amok, run wild, because the truths it breaks, they need to be broken. You know, at first, we embraced this new uncontrolled medium with such hope, right? It gave people who didn't own a television station or a newspaper the power to bypass the censors and to make their voices heard. And we celebrated the power of those voices in Iran, in Tunisia, in Egypt. And now, so many of those hopes have turned to fear. Fear of the hatred and the lies that also seem to spread without control. Lies that can become so widespread that they can seem more real than the truth. And so we need to rush in, right? We need to step in and regulate, control social media, and to save our truths from the lies. But that would be a mistake. So we spend all of our time talking about the problem of the lies, and the lies are a problem. But we missed that the bigger problem, the bigger crisis is our truths. Truths that social media has exposed to be so weak that blatant lies can look just as strong. And this corruption of our truths, it didn't begin in the social media age, it began in the mass media age. Because that's when manufacturing truth, like so many things, became a big-scale industry. Propaganda, advertising, public relations. It was in the mass media age that we learned that the simplest truth is the best one, because that is the truth that we can package and sell at a whole new scale. But we're talking about truth here, right? And truth is supposed to be one of the most elusive and beautiful and mind-blowing things that we can ever search for. What is truth? I don't know. I can't know, because truth is supposed to be the reality that is bigger than ourselves. To find truth, we need to get together and go and search for it together. And if without that search, then we're all alone because we're trapped in our own perspective. That's truth. But in the mass media age, it became something completely different. It became a cheap commodity, a product that we pumped out with an industrial formula. And even the formula was ridiculously simple. You take any message, doesn't matter what it is, pump it full of expert opinion and statistics, you wrap it up in some righteousness and maybe some sex, and then you broadcast it through just a handful of channels, again and again and again, and voila, truth. Truth enough to sell you that cigarettes are slimming, truth enough to sell us on big statements like globalization is a good thing. And don't get me wrong, globalization is a good thing. That statement is true, but only with so many caveats that it could also be false. And the problem is, where did the caveats go? Right? What is the full truth of globalization that we simplified away? I mean, there were bookshelves of competing economic theories about what all happens when we tangle the world's economies together. Huge political choices. How are we going to share the gains? How are we going to spread the losses, if at all? Right? And who is we in this conversation? Is it our district, our country, our region, humanity? There were big philosophical questions too, like, what are we after ultimately on this planet? Is it the end of poverty, more wealth, more individual freedom, social order? For us or my children's children, are we going to talk about nature in here, anywhere, somewhere? Beautiful questions. I would have loved to live in an age when we explored those answers together. And imagine what we might have learned from one another, how we might have advanced as a civilization. But this was the height of the mass media age. And so globalization, this titanic project to reshape humanity, it was packaged and promoted on every channel as an inevitable process. And how sad is that? What did we deny ourselves when we did that? And now we're a decade into the social media age, and we're all learning to become broadcasters. And we've added many more voices to the conversation, and that's great. But we haven't added complexity to the message. In fact, the messages are getting even simpler, right? And now we're electing populists who are the masters of simplifying reality so that now society is drowning in simple truths. And what is becoming obvious? What is becoming obvious? The two things we need to see to end this corruption. And the first is that the formula is now worthless. right? Mass media turned making truth into a formula. Social media has given it to everyone so that now we can all cook up truths in our basement, right? Pump them full of opinion and statistics and churn them out. And what have we discovered? That we have spewed out so many contradictory truths that we have broken public trust in experts and statistics. Right? So now the formula is worthless. The more we use it, the less it persuades. And the other thing that is now obvious is that the simple truth is self-defeating. See, in the mass media age, that was the best one. It reached the most people. But now we've discovered that the other side of simplifying truth is that we commit lies of omission. And it used to be that those omissions were ignored, right? Everything that was omitted from the broadcast, it had no voice. But now, whoa, right? Each of those omissions finds a voice. It is your opportunity to steal my followers, to mock me as mainstream, right? To dismiss my facts as fake news. And we've all learned that in the social media age, the easier, the simpler we make the truth, the easier it is to ignore it, or to outright reject it, to decide that this doesn't represent my reality, and we start declaring our own truths. And when we all do that, when we all simplify the truth down to our own perspective, that's when the difference between a truth and a lie becomes just a matter of perspective. So that's where we are today, right? Thanks to social media, the formula we use to persuade one another doesn't persuade anyone. And the truths we use to bring people to our side, they alienate as many people as we convince. So the truths that we all now possess are broken. They're broken. They may still feel good, but they don't do anything in the world that the truth is supposed to do. And I say good riddance, right? They were never worthy of us. But it does leave us a problem. What now? Now, and this is exciting, we get to make a choice for a whole new relationship with truth. And as far as I can see it, we've only got two options. One, we can declare that the truth is dead. These are not small choices, by the way. The truth is dead. And we need to find a replacement source of sincerity in our groups. A lot of us are already making this choice, right? We buy what our group is buying, we believe what our group believes, and guess what we've discovered? Wow. The messages we consume through our groups, they taste better. They taste more authentic than anything that was ever baked in the factory of mass media. And that's why the populists are winning. But the downside is if we declare truth is dead, then democracy dies with it. Because without truth, there is no reality that is bigger than my own beliefs. And elections are just a contest to see who can be the loudest, and we will all become too self-righteous for the peaceful transfer of power to stay peaceful. And that leaves us with option two. I'm not a big fan of option one. Option two is we resurrect truth. Right? Somehow, we reverse a century of selling the simple truth to each other. And we embark together on a search at scale for the truth that is bigger than ourselves, that we depend upon each other to understand. And we figure out how to use this new, wondrous social medium to build bigger, more complex truths together instead of always hitting each other over the head with little ones. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know how we get there. And that's part of this. We've all got to stop pretending to know. But let me suggest where we could start. And we've got to start deep, because this is a deep problem. If we want to build a society that hungers for, that builds complex truths together, then we need to separate the proofs. And we're all familiar with separation of powers, right? In a free society, we need to separate the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, so that we can only say what is right when different authorities work together. And it's got to become the same with truth. We need to separate the proofs so that no one perspective, be it economic or scientific, historical, cultural, philosophical, spiritual, gets to say what is true, so that we can only say what is true together when different ways of seeing the world work together. And some of these proofs are formal institutions like journalism, like the academy, or religion, or Wikipedia. Others exist as traditions, as values. all of them add complexity, add a healthy dose of doubt to the truths that we hold, if they stand strong and apart. But when ad dollars decide what journalists report, or when universities depend for their research budgets on politicians with a stake in the outcome, when we put a price tag on our values like citizenship and sell it as investor class migration, when we let the proofs concentrate, that's when we run the risk that we're no longer just selling each other simple truths. We begin searching for simple truths. We become satisfied with simple truths. You know, what happens if we let the separation of powers fail? The president who holds office becomes a tyrant over us. And what happens if we let the separations of proofs fail? The views that we hold become tyrants over us. And I think that's the deepest problem that we've got to solve if we want to start down this new road. We've got to figure out how do we separate the proofs? How do we create a healthy space for doubt and complexity to flourish in our truths? And the good news is that finding ways to separate the proofs is not the hard part. Right? A country can guarantee academic freedom in its constitution. A community can crowdfund to buy back their local paper and put it in a public trust. Very simply, we can meet people who look at the world differently and sit down and talk and listen. Finding ways to cultivate healthy doubt in society, that's not the hard part. The hard part is we don't want to. Right? We've been offered this historic choice between the death of truth and its resurrection, and we chose zombie. The truths we now possess are broken, but we are clinging to them anyway. And I get it, right? We like simplicity. We like certainty, complexity and doubt, not so much. We like hitting each other over the head with simple truths. But if that's our choice, then let's be honest about the real problem we face in this social media age is, it is not that the lies are so powerful. It is that we are satisfied with weak truths. Weak truths. And we're going to do our best to protect them by suppressing the lies, by telling the Facebooks of the world, you guys need to take better care of our worthless formula. And we also need to be honest about the downside. If we are satisfied with the truths that we now possess, then we accept to always live in fear of tweeting thumbs. And I can't accept that. None of us should accept that. And we don't have to. Instead, let's let social media run amok and leave ourselves no choice but to find a way to search for stronger truths together. Thank you.